Awesome. Let's do it.
Cool. I'm going right now. I can edit it and start it whenever we want, but yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. And I've been following you for a long time. You're probably one of the people that has really, introduced me and molded me to sort of the ideology that I've accepted, as an adult now. For real.
Well said.
For real, man.
You were also a caller on Adam versus the Man at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. That was funny. But yeah, so I got introduced to you basically from the internet. Like, I got introduced this from my dad. His good friend is Mark Victor, who I think you've kind of rubbed shoulders with throughout the years. And over the years, I kind of got turned on to more and more people in the movement, and I started finding people like you and Luke Radowski from We Are Change and these kind of people, and it was just blowing my fucking mind. Like, I almost became obsessed with it. Like, what is this shit? How come I've never heard this shit before? Where do I find more of this? And, I started watching all your YouTube videos, and that's kind of, you put this call out for people to call in, and I was on your show. And, yeah, man, but I appreciate what you're doing. And I've kind of looked through your oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was kind of looking through your Facebook, and it seems like you have this this kind of thing where it's like a rally against Facebook. Are you being censored right now? Is that what's going on?
Dude, do you want to know my numbers on YouTube? It's insane. I mean, and Facebook I've just completely given up on. But YouTube, it's even more stark from the numbers because it's a little more, or it's supposed to be, a little bit more predictable. But when I had, like in 2013, there was a period I was doing 2 million views a month when I was doing that 3-hour daily podcast with callers and live guests and all that. And I was doing, a 20-minute scripted show 5 days a week. I mean, that was a super intense schedule. And I was making what you would expect to from that on YouTube. For 2 million views at $3 a thousand views, I was getting $6,000 a month. And that was my primary source of income at the time, funding my operation, paying rent for the house that, we were using for a studio. And, like overnight it got cut from $6,000 to $3,000 just 1 month to the next without any warning. And it was apparently, like, this is what we've sort of figured out later, is that it was because YouTube got bought by Google, and they just said anything. And so now all the ads were through Google AdWords. So advertisers had like the default to not support anything that was controversial in any way. And so I had weed, marijuana as my default tag, as two of my, I had like 20 default tags, excuse me, right? And I think they without demonetizing, without coming and telling me, hey, your videos are demonetized, they just stopped running ads on a lot of them. And now I have, my channel has kept growing in terms of subscribers. I have 230,000 now. And they are censoring me so bad that, well, like I said before, I was getting, with 100,000 subscribers, I was getting 5,000 to 10,000 views consistently per video. And, every few videos would get in the tens of thousands. Now my videos get like 500 to 1,000. I mean, it is insane. How much, I have more than twice as many subscribers, and my baseline view count is 1/10 of what is. And people have made videos. You can go online, and I think you can search on YouTube for just like Adam Kokesh censored, and you'll see people trying to watch my videos where they just won't load. And they'll click on another video in the same window, and it'll load right away, or it'll play an ad and load just like it's supposed to. And with mine, they don't even come up. So I'm considering actually, I haven't even started talking about this publicly yet, but I'm considering doing some kind of class action lawsuit against YouTube for fraud. And that it's, the woman who, went and shot up the YouTube headquarters building, she was someone who got demonetized and got screwed over in a very similar way. And it's like, yeah, you create an expectation for people, and then it's around their livelihoods, and you encourage people to rely on YouTube for their livelihoods, and then you take that away. And some of them are crazy. Someone eventually is going to come shoot up your building. Like, you shouldn't be surprised when that happens. Now, I'm not supporting it. I think there's obviously, that it's not legitimate. I'm not supporting a shooting. I'm just saying that it's sort of understandable. We should find peaceful ways of resolving any such disputes. But like, I think a lawsuit might be the right thing to do, even if it's it's like to do a lawsuit for fraud. And even if it's like I'm sure they've got something in the fine print. They've got something that you had to, like, when you checked, I agree, that nobody ever reads. Somewhere down there in the fine print, I'm sure they've got something that says, terms subject to change at any time with or without notice to you, and we don't really care if we screw you over, and you're signing up to be willing to be screwed over, so that if they ever get taken to court, some fancy corporate lawyer can come in and say, well, no, technically this isn't fraud because you signed up. But it is in the bigger sense of like what YouTube has said it is. It is a fraud, and I think it would be a fun mechanism to bring a lawsuit, I think, just to call attention to that, and possibly combine it with like with a series of protests, maybe like Occupy YouTube, and go like all of us unemployed creators who have been screwed over and demonetized by YouTube. Now we have the time. We're just going to come camp out in front of YouTube headquarters and make videos here about how unjust YouTube is. So that might be fun. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see a lawsuit, man. I mean, it's interesting that they're doing that to you because you're a person who's like legit running for president in 2020. Like, I could totally see you getting the Are you running as a libertarian?
Yes, I'm right. Well, let me just. I mean, we're on, right? We're recording now. We're all into it. Okay, yep. So the anytime anybody introduces me as a candidate for president, I cringe. And I have to explain exactly what we're doing here because
explain that.
You have to be a freaking psychopath of some kind to stand up and say, I want to be president of the United States. Right. I want to be in charge of this giant violent monopoly. I want to force my will on the entire country. Like, this is my idea of leadership. No, it's freaking not.
It's a paradox, like, right?
That's a mask for psychopathy. That is someone who wants to control and rule and dominate.
So why do you want to do that? Explain that. Why do you want to be that guy?
That's the thing is I'm not. I have to always point this out to say that while technically I am running for president of the United States, it's much more accurate to say that I'm running for not president. That I'm running because my platform is the peaceful, orderly, responsible dissolution of the entire federal government, and I will only do one thing and one thing only as president, and that is to go in and sign this one executive order. Now, to give myself the sort of legal wiggle room here, I don't know the exact legal mechanism. I might sign 3 executive orders, whatever. But the point is, I'm going to swear in. I'm going to walk to the White House. We're going to sign the series of executive orders, or one executive order where we declare the federal government illegitimate. We declare it bankrupt. We declare it of no authority. Federal laws are no longer enforceable. It is now a custodial institution going through a bankruptcy proceeding. And I resign. Well, first of all, so the reason I might need a separate executive order first to pardon everybody who's in a federal prison for a victimless crime. Like, first thing out of the box, that and federal laws are unenforceable. That's going to happen immediately.
Okay,
but
wait.
I resign.
Right.
Oh, let me finish the overview.
Okay.
Let me finish the quick overview real quick here.
Okay.
And so I resign to become custodian of the federal government. There is no president. We don't need a president. We don't need to be united under one government to be united under American values. And all of the details, as much as we can possibly lay out in advance, will be in this executive order that you can see on our website, that we will have at least a working version of by the time I am asking for anybody to actually vote for me for even the Libertarian Party nomination. So for the first time in American history, you will have a real choice about the future of this country in an election, not, a schmuck from this corporate controlled party or that corporate controlled party, but a real alternative. So while technically I am running for president, it's much more accurate to say that I'm using my candidacy to turn the presidential election into a referendum on whether or not the federal government should be allowed to exist at all. And when we build this consensus and when we win, I get the very, very small authority of managing what is a pre-agreed upon process.
Okay, and for the people who are listening, this is a person who legit is running for president. Like, I could totally see Adam getting the Libertarian nomination. And maybe to some people that are hearing the words that you're saying right now, that might seem extreme? Because you said a lot of things there. You said you wanted to end the federal government. You said you wanted to end this monopoly on force. What does that mean to you? When I see your videos, when I see your content online, I'm seeing a lot of words like the non-aggression principle. I'm seeing things like this. What does that mean to someone who hears that? Oh, this is an extremist. He wants to end the federal government. What the fuck? What would you say to a person that would think something like that?
Well, first of all, Adam, you know that's not the best way, and not how I'm presenting these ideas. That it's dissolved in a peaceful, orderly, responsible manner.
Right.
And I can't, like, those three keywords, that this is, you know, a peaceful, orderly, responsible dissolution. I can't emphasize that enough. But really, most people, and I've done 4 national book tours now and campaign tours talking about this. And you know, I have my logo when I had my little RV trailer. Now with my big Class A bus that I tour in, I got my name and website and all that stuff on the side of the bus. You know, I talk to a lot of average Americans at gas stations. That's my slice of demographics right there. And, you know, people don't really have that objection. People are really ready for this. They know that keeping the federal government going is the extremist idea. They know that is the impractical idea. They are looking for fundamental change. When you look at the voting patterns, just the demographics, the numbers in America, like, some people will say, but Adam, you have to be able to win over Republicans on this and Democrats on this. No, actually, we really don't. Because if you look at just the numbers, 60% of the eligible population votes consistently in presidential elections. Only less than 30% vote consistently in non-presidential elections. Those are the only ones that are hardcore. That's like 15%. 15% of eligible voters, that's it, are the hardcore, you know, red team go, blue team go. If I just vote harder, we're going to save this country, that kind of crap. Okay. Most Americans know better than that.
Okay, explain this to me like I'm a 5th grader. Like, what does that mean? What do you think would happen? Let's say tomorrow, or let's say in 2020, you're running for president. Adam Kokesh is the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. What would it look like if all of a sudden you were to start to slowly roll back the power let's say you get elected for 4 years, just for argument's sake. You start to roll back the power of this federal government. What is the problem with the federal government having this much power over our lives? And what would it look like if you started rolling that back slowly? What do you think would happen? What do you think the society what do you think the consequences and the benefits of society would be like if you started pulling back that power that the federal government has over our lives? What do you think would happen?
Man, I think you packed so much into this question. I need you to, like, not ask me another question for the next 3 hours and let me get no. But actually, I kind of want to start by answering your question with that, which is that, you know, most human beings are creatures of pragmatism. They're not like us. They will never take an hour to listen to me. They will never take an hour to consider this message, and that's fine. I mean, Adam, would you say that you have a mostly libertarian audience?
Yes. Well, no, not necessarily. I really don't. I'm a libertarian, but I have people from all over the spectrum. That's why I'm kind of trying to get you to speak in a language that people could understand. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people.
Hold on. Adam, I'm giving your audience way more credit than you are for being intellectually capable of hearing.
No. Well, really I'm not saying
the background analysis on this.
Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're not capable of understanding this, but the language that you're speaking right now sounds extreme, and I'm trying to get you to speak in a way that would, you know, speak to the broader audience. Maybe there's a Bernie Sanders person that's listening to this.
So, hold on. See, Adam, I think you're falling for, just in that question, and this is where I'm giving your audience a lot of respect here to go super inside baseball on you. That question, in and of itself, I think reflects a lot of false presumptions about the state of America, the state of humanity, the state of just intellectual awareness of the world and how much change people are not just ready for, but expecting at this point. They expect something fundamentally different. They expect a solution as big as the problem. And if you hit them with bullshit, you know,
no, I get it.
At least the people who you and I are talking to right now. When it comes to the messaging, and I want to tell you this, like, this is because you're someone who you know, I appreciate your support in all of this. I want you to know that right now we are very focused on winning the Libertarian Party nomination. That's step one. And that's recruiting delegates and building a 50-state organization. We've already done that. We've got the national convention coming up in a few weeks. And then when we get to the general election, we're going to focus group this. We're going to do the messaging research. Right now, I need people to understand that I'm presenting a vision that I have considered with a lot of input from other people, that I have thought through, that I have considered all of these bigger dynamics of, that this is the way forward. I need people to be able to buy in and understand it. When it comes time to sell it to the general population, most Americans won't care about the details. And this is why I asked if your audience was mostly libertarian.
It's not.
I always like well, okay, but even if it's just at that level, most of what when I talk to my audiences in person, I like to challenge them and put them on the spot. And I say, how many of you designed the cut of the shirt you're wearing right now? And there's usually one smart ass in the back who, raises his hand or says something, but generally it's nobody, right? And I say, well, look, if I was up here giving a lecture on fashion and design, I could look down my nose at all of you right now and say, what a bunch of sheeple, what a bunch of followers. You didn't even design your own clothes. You didn't even think through what you're wearing for yourself. It would be like that scene from The Devil Wears Prada. You don't even know what color blue that is, that kind of snobbery. And I think we make the mistake of first engaging in that in politics and wanting to be central planners. But then as libertarians, we almost go too far in the other direction of saying, well, we need to get everybody on board. Everybody's got to figure this out. And the answer is in between on this one, is that we need to provide leadership and make it easy for people and say, look, come out and vote once. And it might be the last time you ever have to vote in a federal election. This is going to be fun. This is going to be easy. We're going to end the pain, the suffering, the injustice of the current government. Yes, we've got a credible plan.
Right.
There are enough people who understand it, who have bought in. And so that's where we at. Now you see the bigger progress of this campaign.
Let me just
frankly,
cut you off.
I think 2020 might be a warm-up for 24.
I hope. And listen, dude, if you run for president, you got my vote. But I'm just saying this. I have a lot of people that are on the left that are my audience, right? So when they hear you say things like you want to end the federal government, that is such a foreign idea to them that...
Well, I don't say that. I say dissolve.
Well,
I say
okay.
dissolve.
You want to dissolve.
Well,
wait.
Dissolve in a peaceful, orderly, responsible manner in which every agency will either be localized down to the state level, spun off as a public trust, or if it's totally unnecessary, contrary to human needs, then it will be that part only abolished.
Okay, let me say this. There's a war of ideas here, because there's certain people that think that the government should get bigger, should have more control over your lives, because these politicians know what they're doing and they know how to make things better, right? And this is the promise that's been promised by governments throughout the years, throughout the wars, throughout all the shit, and that never seems to work out right? But what you're saying...
Hold on, let me suggest that if I make really back up on the big picture, you want because somewhere in that question you're asking, what's this about, in the bigger sense about,
yes.
Voluntarism, right? This
yes.
ideal
what
that
is the non-aggression principle?
For.
What does that
the
mean?
non-aggression principle is the principle that says you should not violate somebody else's self-ownership with an act of aggression that violates their individual rights as a human being, that to do so is unethical and holds humanity back from our potential in harmony.
Why does the government do that? Why is the government that? Why is the government against the non-aggression principle? What you just explained, what is it about the government that's against that?
The government, now this is not everything that we apply the word government to. Sometimes you might say community government or family government or corporate governance or whatever the case may be. But when we refer to the institution of government, commonly referred to, the big one that cut up the property of the earth into different territories and little pieces and different colors on the map, that government is a territorial monopoly on violence. And that is why it is fundamentally unethical. Even the good things that it does are backed up by the threat of force. And if
Why
it's
violence?
unethical...
Why violence? Explain that. Why is it violence? When someone hears violence, they don't know what that means maybe. What does that mean? Why is it violent?
Well, we know the obvious violence of government where they come out and hurt people, and you see it in war, in the police state, in confiscation of property. But even everything that it does, because taxation theft is backed up by coercion. And you know that if you don't pay your taxes, you'll get, you might get some letters in the mail, but eventually men and now some women will come with guns and lock you in a cage. And if you resist, they will use violence against you. And if you resist successfully, they will kill you. Like that's what the state is all about. And we're capable of better. Like humanity is capable of better. Sorry. We should expect better at this point. And you said you had like for example, a very liberal base in your audience. You said some people want government to get bigger. In a sense, I don't have a problem with that as long as we attach the word voluntary to government. How do we get to the point where government is voluntary? And the answer is get it down to the community level, localize it. And this is where everybody agrees.
I agree
because
with
this
that.
is the everybody gets what they want strategy.
Yes.
See, now this is where I want to back up and reframe libertarianism for you and your audience. A lot of people think of libertarianism as pro-gun and pro-drug. And in a sense it is, but it's not so much as it is pro-private property. You do not have a special right to own a gun. That's a privilege. That's something that's laid out when someone has already taken your rights away and claimed ownership over you. You have an inherent right as a human being to own property, and no one has a right to tell you what kind of property you can and cannot own, as long as you're not violating anybody else's rights, as long as you're not violating the non-aggression principle. So if someone is anti-gun, and I have a lot of credibility on this because, I did 4 months in jail for firearm civil disobedience. And I will say that while I am pro-gun now, while I am pro-gun forever in the sense that you have that inherent right, in another practical sense, I'm kind of anti-gun. I think we're going to get phasers. You can call them stun guns, but at the point at which you have a self-defense weapon, imagine this: you have like a Star Trek phaser. You can shoot someone in the pinky toe, and it will disable them and cause no damage to their body. Why would you accept someone carrying a firearm onto your property for self-defense when that's a viable option? Now, you have the right to do what you want on your own property. You go shoot, ski, own a firearm for defense, shotgun. But you have a tank in your yard if that's what you want. If there's no, homeowner's agreement with your neighbors that stops you from having that. But there's the flip side of this too, is that if a community of people comes together voluntarily on property that they all own or that they claim communally and say, guns aren't allowed here, we don't want guns on our property, then you as a libertarian, as an ethical human being, you have to respect that. Same thing with drugs. If someone says, hey, I don't want drugs in my property, on my property or in my community where we all say we don't want drugs, then, okay, so don't go to their parties, but don't bring drugs into their community either if that's respect for their private property.
So let's say you're running for president to slowly dissolve the federal government, right? So let's say communities pop up where the libertarian mindset can rocket their way, where people can have their things and people can live the lives their way without with the non-aggression principle, without these forces of government. But maybe the community across the country rocks it where they don't want guns in their society. They don't want these things. So basically what he's saying is, fuck it. Like, you don't care what they're doing as long as you're able, in your community and your people and ideology are able to rock it the way you want to rock it.
Yep. So under statism, we're all forced into this one-size-fits-nobody but the profiteers kind of false solution that we get with a big central government. When you have freedom, people still will form what they will probably call governments that allow them to have collectives at all sorts of different levels, and you get whatever you want. You can live by yourself, like I might want to live homesteaded like I am in Arizona on my own property where I've got 10 acres and I'm self-sufficient, and I have an insurance company, and I have a security force that's going to respond to meet my security needs, totally independent of any community or government system. You might want to have a small community where you have, like I might actually develop, where I have multiple families living together on that property or in that general area. I might want to live in a small town where the town comes together, and the town, everybody who lives in this, like there's a corporation or a company that owns all the land in the town, and everybody who lives there is living under contract. So there is a mechanism of communal agreement and people making rules for each other within that communal space. Some people might want to live in cities, and have city governments And they're not going to be governments, so they're going to be voluntary structures, voluntary organizations, as opposed to coercive ones. There might be territories, too, where people come together on a large scale on private property and form collectives that way. But the thing is, they're not really governments at that point. I think the term collective is a lot more appropriate. And you can have governance of a community. You can have governance in a collective. But when it's with respect for individual rights, when it's in respect for the non-aggression principle, when it's ethical, when it's voluntary, it's not really government anymore.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with you. I think that if you have this federal government that's like this 800-pound gorilla in the woods, and it has this much control over this much land and this much control over this many people, there's going to be consequences to that, right?
Yep.
So
but there's going to be conflict. People fight. Like, this actually unifies us. This brings us together. This campaign is bringing together left, right, and center against the common enemy of big centralized government. But in the bigger scope of human social evolution, this is uniting us in respect. Just basic human decency. Let's respect how other people want to live in their relationships with society, with communities. And that unites humanity globally. We're going to see a global paradigm shift, somewhat to libertarianism, somewhat to voluntarism, but I think first, in a much more powerful and meaningful way, just to localization.
Yeah.
Let's get government down to the community level. And I talk to liberals, I talk to conservatives, and we can have the philosophical debate about ideals, but where we all agree is like, yeah, we don't need to be forced into one giant collective. That's bullshit. That's the source of really most of the world's problems today.
Yeah, absolutely. When you can have this tax base of this much control, you have these small amount of people that have this much control over this much land and people, that creates the consequences where you can now rally people on TV and say that these people over there aren't doing what we want, so now we need to go bomb the shit out of them, and you can get all of these people to get behind you to endorse this force on other people. But with the absence of this thing known as the federal government, it would be impossible to get this much support to be able to go fuck people's shit up with these wars that we've seen over time to be not really exactly what they tell us they were, and it seems to be more under, serving the military-industrial complex and things like this. So by reducing this power over all of our lives, it seems to give people the choice to how they want to live their lives. If you want to have, a community and rock it the way you want to rock it, that's cool. And basically, it feels like what you're saying is you would like to live in a community where there's really a reduced amount of this power over your life, and you're going to rock it your way, and maybe the next guy over there in the next community can rock it his way, but it's up to you.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Well, honestly, like right now, under today's circumstances with government, I can say I don't want to live in a city. I don't want to live in the suburbs. I want to live rurally where I have a lot of nature and I have a lot of land to live off and place to engage in permaculture and, experimental construction, because those are some of my passions with my lifestyle. But ultimately, I want the choice. Like at some point, 30, 40 years in the future, I don't want to, I don't think we're going to get old and decrepit because of medical technology, which is another amazing thing that we have to look forward to right now. But, if maybe at some point, if I was old and decrepit 30, 40 years from now, I would want to live in an apartment in a city. And I want to live in a city where I don't have to worry about the cops busting my door down for a fucking plant. I'm happy to live communally with an agreement that's clear cut and there's no arbitrary authority being dangled over me. I might want more tight-knit community. I might want a bigger community someday. Right now, what I want is, I want to live rurally. I want a place to raise my children without being subject to CPS coming and kidnapping them in the name of the state, without government schools force feeding them propaganda, without all the negative food, poison, and crap that they're exposed to through advertising and television, all that. Like I just want a comfortable place to raise my kids and make art and live free and have a life based on loving, caring relationships that bring value and joy to my life. And I want everybody to have that freedom in the way that they want. And I want them to have it in the way that they are ready for. And that's the other thing about localization. Some people are ready for more of a transition right away. Some people want to kind of keep it how it is, and they're gonna want to see other people try things first. That's totally cool too. But we can't have that when we're forced under a central authority. We are denied the opportunity to do that on just so many levels when we accept that we need a president, that we need a federal government, that we, just because it's always been this way, it's the way it's always got to be. We really do need at least a paradigm shift in how we think about government. And that, to me, first and foremost, is localization. Now, it's already happening, and I wouldn't be making this as a prediction of the future if I didn't see it happening already. But you look at Brexit, the Scottish independence vote, Catalonia, and that's just in Europe. In the United States, I'm right now in the Republic of Texas. Strong independence movements in Vermont, New Hampshire, the 51st State Project in Colorado, Jefferson State Project in Northern California, Southern Oregon. You've got Alaska independence movement, Hawaiian independence movement. Even California now wants to split off. A lot of people in California are now California separatists. I mean, this is a beautiful thing where we're in the age of the internet. We can change stuff around. This is the millennial generation coming into power saying, we're just not going to accept problems that exist for lack of access to information, because we have that now. So I'm sorry, we're just not going to put up with it. Not going to happen.
Yep, and that beautifully represents, basically what I've been seeing out of you for all these years. Adam Kokesh, running for president, 2020. Where can they find you? Like, where would the best place be? You have an awesome book. It's called Freedom. Anyone who wants to read into any more of these things that kind of we've been talking about today, where do they get that? Where do they find more information about the things you were kind of talking about here?
Thank you. Yeah, my primary website is thefreedomline.com. That's 3 words, thefreedomline.com. You can get my book there for free in every digital format, including audiobook. You can get to Adam versus the Man from there. That's my, my production brand where, I started my radio show back in the day as Adam versus the Man. And you can find Kokesh for president from there without having to remember how to spell my funny last name. So if you just remember thefreedomline.com, 3 words, thefreedomline.com, you can find everything from there, including social media. And steemit.com, so important right now in terms of switching over to blockchain-based social media. You want to be the change that you wish to see. You got to start being a conscientious consumer of information. You asked about Facebook to start. Yeah, I'm not on Facebook. I don't engage on Facebook anymore. I have, I don't think people should just delete their accounts, because that doesn't help people make the transition. And I don't think it's smart when you have relationships based on that to just completely walk away from them. But to disengage from the platform, I have on a 24-hour repeating schedule. Every 24 hours on my page goes up, get off Facebook. It says #leave loudly.
Yeah,
don't just disappear. You don't just disappear. They would love for all the conscientious people to get off of Facebook and keep it be the Walmart of the conversation.
I was thinking that. But yeah, the colors even kind of match, right? Yeah.
But so I love Walmart, and I love Facebook for what it represents for humanity moving forward. I love Walmart for what it represents for quality of life getting cheaper and more accessible for millions of people.
Yeah.
But we will I go to Walmart when I have a 3D printer in my house? Heck no. Why would you engage with Facebook when you have Steemit, when you have blockchain-based social media? And so I really encourage people to do that. But Adam, if I may say one more thing for your audience about that, I really want to encourage everybody, as being a conscientious consumer of information, to support this show, support Adam, support his podcast, support every independent media outlet that is challenging the status quo, because I've been there myself and really relied on people who believed in making it possible to make this transition for me to be any kind of voice in the conversation. So please put your money where your mouth is and support independent productions like this.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate you saying that. And like you said, real quick on the end here, tell them where they can get your information again, and then we'll wrap it up. And dude, I appreciate you coming on. And so
yeah.
Go ahead.
It's all one place, thefreedomline.com. That's it. 3 words, thefreedomline.com.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. I respect what you've been doing for a long time. I've been following you, and it's all love, man. I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate anybody listening to this. And I'll shoot you a text after I press stop here, and we can do it like that. So Adam Kokesh,
awesome.
Look him up. Look up the links he just said. Freedom. He has a book called Freedom. He wrote that while he was in jail, I believe. Correct? Yes.
Started. I have to say started writing, because I did most of it out of jail. But yeah, I was inspired by my jail experience to write the ultimate red pill with a lot of people's help, and it was a very crowdsourced book.
Great book. pick that up. Adam versus the man.
Thank
Adam
you.
Kokesh. Thank you for anybody listening. Thank you. I appreciate you. Goodbye.